think agents are really gonna struggle with even how to word this and really explain it to their clients. And clients are gonna have a hard time wrapping their head around this new way of doing real estate. Because that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be a new way of doing real estate. And everyone goes to their mom and their dad and their uncle and their aunt and their sister and their mammy and their pappy because they're the real estate people that they know in their life. And they're gonna say, I've never heard of it being done that way. What are you talking about? They're trying to scam you. Fire that buyer's agent. He's trying to get 2% from you direct. Get him out of here. They should do that for free. This here is for you guys, the movers and the shakers, the motivated and creators, the big thinkers, the big dreamers, the outliers, the one pushing the needle forward, the students of the game and the ones making their lanes, the ones that get things done and know everything is one. Welcome to your pod, the Everything is Everything podcast. Let's go.
Can't ignore it, this my story, I've been more than ready. And this stuff I'm cooking up is like culinary. True intentions, must I mention, it's just legendary.
Hey guys, welcome to the Everything is Everything podcast. My name is Vladimir Ledesma.
And my name is Fabio Suarez.
And we are very happy to be back with you guys for another episode here. We are super excited. So many things going on, so many changes. Fabio, you have so much going on since you started the podcast in the last, 8 weeks?
Yeah, it hasn't even been 2 months, man. And so
Phenomenal.
Things are already started to happen, and it's a humbling experience.
Love it, man. Tell us a little bit about it. You got some cool adventures going on.
Just this past week, I'm not going to say everything, but, I got to work with a big-time influencer. I got to do a video for him, and he put it, he's on the verge of putting it out. And I'm working with some other people, so it's just really exciting, man.
I'm hoping by the time that this one comes out, because we're like 5 weeks ahead. Maybe it's out. You don't want to share just yet?
Not just yet, just because I haven't gotten clearance talking about it on podcasts and things like that. But I'm just super humbled to be a part of just everything.
All right, so we're gonna make sure we go back to all the other podcasts and cut out beep. No, I'm just kidding. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. But I'm super proud of you. I want to take a moment to give you your flowers while the cameras are on. Super proud of the progress of the initiative. One of the things that I told Fabio when we started, he mentioned to me he kind of wanted to start his real estate journey here in New York because he already started in Chicago, but wanted to kind of, he had a little bit of time. He's like, hey, let me come with you, see, the day to day. And we started the podcast. And I told him, and he told me, I'm super excited. Right? I want to bring this up now because now we're about 2 months in. I think it's a good time to bring it up. Right. Fabio said, I'm super excited. This is super cool.
Right.
And I was straight faced, very honest. And I said, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not excited at all.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not excited because it's day one.
Right.
I said, when I'm going to get excited? Well, you're here for the 6th podcast.
When you show up.
For the 10th podcast.
Right.
And you're still here showing up? That's when I'm going to get excited.
Right.
So today I want to tell you, I'm going to give you your flowers right now and tell you, today I'm excited on episode 12, man.
Man, again, I'm super grateful just to hear that and to be a part of everything. Like,
I love it.
The Everything is Everything podcast.
Yes, sir.
To, join you on this journey, of growth. It's a big deal to me because I really believe like God set this up.
I love it.
And it's funny because we were talking before we started here that you even kind of, like we ourselves didn't even know how this came to be. Yep. We were talking and all of a sudden you were like, you know what, let's do this. And, I really believe it was God that put that in your heart. Absolutely. And again, I'm just grateful to be a part of this entire thing.
I love it, man. I love it. So super exciting. Just wanted to share all those kind of highlights just so you guys know what's going on and how the pod is progressing. We've already had our first 2 interviews that by the time this probably comes out, you guys will see with Izzy the jeweler and my man, what's my man's name?
Anton.
And my man Anton from REI Call Center.
Yes.
Super cool dude. Can't wait for you guys to see both of those pods. And we already have the next 3 podcast guests set up. But we did want to add this one in as a quick intermission because at the end of the day, my bread and butter is real estate. And I wanted to share the big changes happening in real estate because there's some big changes going on. Definitely for the professionals in real estate, but this is also going to affect the market and the buyers and the sellers in a major, major way. So I'm going to do a little bit of reading just to kind of give you guys the breakdown of what's going on. But super important. So today we're going to be diving into the groundbreaking shift in the real estate industry that affects both buyers and sellers. The recent legal settlement between the National Association of Realtors and a group of home sellers. This was a class action lawsuit. The settlement has led to major changes in how real estate commissions are handled, and these changes could impact your next home purchase or sale. So let's break down what happened a little bit. The NAR, National Association of Realtors, was involved in a lawsuit where they were accused of conspiring with major brokerages to keep real estate commissions high. The plaintiffs argued that the sellers were unfairly required to pay not only their agent's commission, but also the buyer's agent's commission, leading to inflated costs. To avoid the risk of a long, drawn-out court battle with potentially harsh penalties, NAR settled the case for a whopping $418 million. Man,
Wow.
I wish I had NAR's money. As part of the settlement, some significant changes now are in place. Before we go into those changes, let's dive in a little bit to this lawsuit. I knew about this for about the past year. It's been in the industry talks going on for a while, the battle between NAR and would they settle or would they fight it. Of course, the National Association of Realtors is something that all realtors pay into. So I pay these people, and their job is basically, they're our lobbyists. They protect our industry in politics and in everything that's going on in that sense. So when this lawsuit came, and it was stated it was because, a class action lawsuit, the sellers were upset that they were paying the buyer's commission, though they definitely saw that because it's always been negotiable. I do want to state that, I'm not 100% in agreement with everything that happened here. I do think that we're going to get some massive benefits, which I'm going to get into in a little bit, and I think it's going to benefit everyone. I think it's definitely going to benefit sellers first and foremost. I think the people that are most at risk here are buyers, but I think that what's going to come of it for the people in the industry is going to be that we're going to weed out a lot of people that don't take this industry serious and probably are a part of either why this has happened or have just given the industry a bad name. I think that the top quality agents are going to be the ones that are going to be able to survive this storm and really show their value and show their clients what exactly it is that we're doing for them. Because contrary to popular belief, there is a lot of value that's added by realtors. That's why we've existed for this long, and 95% of people still use a realtor, whether buying or selling a property, which is everything that was kind of covered in the lawsuit, right? So the sellers were saying that they felt they should not have been responsible for paying for the buyer's commission. How did that work for the people that are listening that maybe don't really understand the intricacies of this? The seller traditionally always negotiated commissions with the seller's agent. So everything was negotiated through the seller and the seller's agent when you got the listing. So if I came to you and I said, Junior, I'm going to list your home, and I'm going to list it for a fee of 5% commissions. So that fee of 5% commissions of the sale of the property, let's call it for easy terms, $100,000.
Okay.
Right? $5,000 will be my commission, but 3% of that is actually for me on the seller side, for the photography, for listing, the marketing, taking the calls, setting up the showings, setting you up on all the platforms that will make this feasible and easy.
All the runaround.
Right, all that easy stuff. Right? And then 2% of that will be, because I'm going to also put this on the MLS, which is only by the National Association of Realtors and people who have their license and professionals who have buyers and are going to see this and bring us clients to view the home. Because many of their clients may see this on Zillow, but they have no representation and they haven't been qualified correctly, which is a big thing we'll get into later. But so that 2% would be for that buyer's agent, because they were going to handle everything that had to do with the buyer to make sure that they were in position to actually purchase this home. So, right, they would bring the proof of funds, they would show their buyer, they would have questions for the seller agent, for example, or for the seller, but they would set them up with their inspection and whatever they had to do on their end, get them their attorneys, get them to the contract table, and then help them and guide them through the whole process until closing day. Right? I'm doing it really quick just to give the idea.
Yeah.
That was that 5% commissions and what that covered. It came out of the seller's commission. Of course, you know that in the last 5 years, the sellers have been making off like bandits because the market is incredibly high.
Right.
So very funny in a way that now is when this lawsuit comes up and not 15 years ago when it was a buyer's market and they were maybe really losing out on money. But now when they're making all this money, they were still non-content with the commissions that they were making, though it's always been negotiable. And the one thing that now is pretty much is like, they're making it this big thing where it's like, oh, we just want to highlight that it's always negotiable. It has always been negotiable. So, and I think, at least from the agents that I've known and the way that I was taught, we've always stated that it's always been negotiable and always negotiated the listing. So that's where the lawsuit came from. They settled, because the real reason that NAR settled is because litigation is very expensive and paying the attorneys is very expensive. Their commission, right? Which also is commission based. So it's funny because it's a predatorial commission, but whatever. Long story short, what's really going to come of this is now that a buyer's agreement, which again, the professionals in the industry have already been doing. I've always done buyer's agreements with my clients. It's a part of I'm with eXp Realty. It's mandated actually with eXp that when I hand in all of our documents to eXp, I have a buyer's or a seller's agreement, which means that I had to show it to my client, review it with them, go over any questions, and they would be able to see that they would be able to negotiate there if they wanted to. So these are the changes that are coming now from the lawsuit. So they settled for $418 million. Buyer's agreement. So some of the changes, significant changes, are now in place. Is the buyer's agreement. Agents are now required to have a signed agreement with buyers before showing them homes. This agreement needs to specify the agent's compensation and clearly state that these fees are negotiable. So now that is a difference, is that now the buyer's agreement is pretty much putting the buyer responsible for the commissions. That is different, right? Because before I didn't have to really go into that grand detail with the buyer knew. Because, well, it was stated what we would be paid on the MLS. The only time that I would have to negotiate is if it was a for sale by owner. So this already used to happen. Again, this is why I say it's like a little funny, but this already happened with for sale by owners. So if it wasn't on the MLS and it was just a seller selling their home, I would have to call them and say, hey, I have a buyer that I'm bringing to show your home. What commissions will you be giving to the buyer side for it? And they would say, oh, we'll give a, 2% commission. Or we give a 1% commission. Well, I'm not bringing my buyer for a 1% commission, right? Because there's a lot of intricacies, especially if you're a for sale by owner. That means I got to do both sides of the deal, really. I'm not doing it for less than 3%. And then, there we could get into negotiations of whatever we felt was correct. So this already really existed. I think it's just previously when it was on the MLS, you didn't have to negotiate because the seller already did it. But they were also in agreement that they were going to pay this commission. So it doesn't make sense because they signed docs that they would pay it, but whatever. Buyers now may have to pay the commission for their side. That's the biggest thing. I think that's the biggest change. And honestly, who's the only person that brings money to the table anyways?
Yeah, really, it's the buyer.
Yeah, the buyer. It's really the only person that's actually bringing money to the table, getting a loan out, bringing an actual deposit. So the buyer has always been paying. The seller's doing this lawsuit. Right. The reality is that they were just cashing out. It was deducted from their earnings, but the buyer was bringing the money anyhow. Right? So buyers are going to now have to also pay this commission. That's kind of how they're stating it. And I feel like that's kind of what I want to really address here. Because the way that they're making it seem is like now, oh wow, so buyers are now going to be buying a house for $500,000 and then also having to pay their buyer agent an extra $10,000 on top of what they're buying the house for. We're hoping that that's not the case. It could be the case in certain situations, but this is, I think, what's really going to change the market. So this is where I say the positives are going to come in, and we're going to see changes and shifts in the market. Yeah. And I think that what inevitably, in my opinion, happen is that things are going to go back to just exactly kind of how they were. but with everybody knowing that they could negotiate, which they could always have negotiated.
Right.
So I'm going to explain in a second about the buyer's commission, about the buyer's agreements, and the possibly paying or what the options will be for buyers with paying commission. Removal of commission offer from MLS. So on the MLS, when the seller and the listing agent made the agreement previously and said, we're gonna list this house for this much, it would state buyer's agent to get 2% of the sale price. So that's why we didn't have to negotiate with our buyer side, because we would look on the listing and say, all right, 2% will be for us. Let's just go see this house. Do you like it? How much do you want to offer? Whatever you offer, I'm going to get 2% off.
And you would know that you're going to get 2% no matter what.
I would know I was going to get 2% on the deal because I could see it.
But now it's just like, we have to break that down before you even speak to anyone.
Correct. Now, so exactly. So first conversation would be, for example, with you as my buyer. Hey, I'm not going to go show you houses for less than 2% because I'm not. I don't know who's willing to go do that. But, right, there's 2% sounds like a lot of money when you say, oh, 500,000, 2% is 10,000. Wow, Vlad, you want to get $10,000? That's predatory. But then when you take into consideration, 2% for 3 to 6 months of work,
right,
if not more. Then you kind of can put things into consideration and go, well, would you work for $10,000 for 6 months?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the part that we'll get into in a second. But now we would have to negotiate before we even go see homes. Say, hey, just so you're aware, these are the changes, these are the guidelines. This is what my commission would have to be. And it is negotiable. And you could say, hey, I won't do it unless you do it for 1.5%, which is probably when I would give you a nice firm handshake and say, well, best of luck on your ventures. And I'm sure you'll do just fine.
Right.
But it's also adding the value and understanding why. You know, why do you deserve that 2%? I think that's what's going to highlight the difference.
Yeah.
Between the people that will survive this transition and the people that will probably just fade away.
Yeah.
You know, because there are some people that are just like.
And you could also say, hey, I want 3% or 4%, or you can even higher the amount.
Correct. You could say, I won't do it for anything less than 3%, which a lot of people do.
Makes sense.
And they'll say, hey, like, actually, I do that. If the house is if your budget is under $300,000, that means I'm only getting $6,000 on this. And I'm going to go show you the same houses I'm going to go show my client that has an $800,000 home. It's the same work.
Right.
But I'm not getting paid nearly the same. And you know, you're going to be able to call me whenever you need something. You're going to be able to ask me all the questions that you need throughout these 6 months at your beck and call, and going to see these homes and negotiating on the back end and getting you attorneys and speaking with attorneys and speaking with lenders and qualifying you for the right loan and all those things. And hey, I can't do that for
less
just
than
6,000. I need 9. I need 3%.
Makes sense.
You know, but those are just, it's going to be agent by agent, what they decide and what they feel their value is worth and what they're bringing to the table. Proving, though, I think the more important part is that now it's going to be a good point and a good time to prove your value. It's going to be a very good opportunity to speak with your clients and show them your value.
Yeah, I love that.
I think that's going to be the biggest differentiator here.
And it's what's going to separate you, right? And I think we spoke about that on another podcast, but I think that's great to add here. It's like when you finally see, you know, who you're working with, you're not just working with, you know, average Joe. You've been in the business for this long.
Right.
And I love that you just made that point, because they're going to see who they're going to get, right?
Right.
You're going to get someone who's there for you, who's looking for your best interest, and knows their stuff.
And understands the industry. I think that, like, now you're going to see a lot of the people move away from, hey, my cousin's a realtor, so I'm just going to go with him.
Right, yeah.
You're going to see a lot of that go away, because it's like before it was like, oh, he's a realtor, and I think that realtors just drive us around and open doors.
Right.
I think that now they're going to take it a little bit more and say, oh, wait, it's not just that he's going to go open this door. Like, how do I know that if he's willing to take 1% to work with me,
right?
How's he going to negotiate this deal for me?
Right.
He doesn't even value himself, so he's going to, whatever they tell him that we can get is what he's going to do. Like, how will he know how to negotiate my deal?
Yeah, and he's not just going to sell you a house. he's gonna get you the best house for you and your family for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, I'm not gonna say names, but I remember I worked with a realtor, decent guy, but, you know, I didn't get that. You know, I didn't get that type of value where it was like this guy was gonna be there no matter what, make sure that the floors are good.
Right.
Make sure that, you know, I'm putting my wife into the right place. And
Absolutely.
as you know, we almost went into like a pit hole.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of like, all right, you like it? All right, well, let's go.
You got it. Let's get it. Let's go. I need that 2%. I'm trying to get out of here.
Yeah,
boom, boom, boom.
where's the check? All right, I was going to give it to him because I was like, man, this guy seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
But then after a couple of months later, I hadn't gotten a call from him. So it was kind of like.
You learned that, yeah, he disappeared after that.
Yeah, he disappeared, and it's like, what, you know, was he really there for me? You know, or like, was he going to be there through thick and thin?
Right.
And when what you're saying is true. Like, you're separating yourself when you're providing that type of value.
That's where the value comes in. Something I'm doing this week, aside from making this video just to inform the people that already follow me, is I'm reaching out to all of my past clients. And I'm letting them know two things that are going on right now in the market. Interest rates are dropping. Hey, if you bought in the last 2 years, might be nice to start at least paying attention because it might be a good time to refinance pretty soon. Keep your eye open on that. And already people are like, Vlad, I appreciate you thinking of me. I appreciate you calling me, right? Yeah. But that's a part of the value that I add as your agent. It's not just, oh, I got your check and
that's it. See you later.
See you later, alligator. I don't got to worry about you ever again. It's like, no. Worst. Like, this is a value add that comes along with my team and us as your agent. We're going to take care of you, hopefully, for your whole life and your whole real estate career. Right. Whether you're just in one home, that's fine. You know, that doesn't mean, oh, I need you to go buy a house every year. But I do need to tell you, hey, maybe it's a good time. I remember you bought in 2022 when the rates hit 8%. I think it's a good time for you to start looking. You know, they're around 6.5%.
Right.
You might be able to save $400 on your mortgage. And guess what? A lot of agents aren't going to do that. That's just one specific thing to highlight, right? Like, just that came to mind. But another thing that I was just thinking while we were talking about this is I need to do this because in the last 2-3 years, which has been, I'm in New York, lower New York, so, you know, southern New York. I'm in Yonkers, and I sell up to Orange County. It's been super competitive. I have to see my stats because it's something I know that I can put up there that's going to be another add value. In a market where most people are paying $50,000 and $60,000 over asking, I'm batting like 50-50 on negotiating deals at asking and even below.
Right.
And that's the negotiation skills and explaining to people, yeah, you're right, you're paying me $10,000. You're right. I'm probably saving you more than that in this transaction. Where if you went in it alone and you hear, oh, there's 4 offers, one, you just, oh, that's it. And now you're scared when the inspection comes to even negotiate or anything like that.
Right.
And that's, I think, where, again, the added value will come in and the people that will be able to sustain this storm and kind of really add value for their client, where they'll be able to see, you know, I can have those people come in and have that conversation. Oh, Vlad saved me $25,000 from our original offer.
Yeah, and I think another great point to highlight is that you're 100%, you know, doing this. You're not doing this in part-time job. It's like you're 100% full-time realtor.
For sure.
Which is one of those things that I'm like, man, sometimes you don't see that, right? You don't see that devoted attention. So I think that's a great thing to highlight.
Right. And we're going to see less and less full-time realtors because if they can't get with it, they probably won't be able to sustain it. The buyers will have to have the agreement, removal of commission offer from the MLS. So now the seller's agent will no longer be able to say what the buyer's agent will get on the MLS. And that will have to be negotiated aside. You will have to have true negotiation skills to negotiate your commissions.
Right.
And to make sure that that in you negotiating your commissions, you don't hinder your client. That's going to be another main point, right? And I'm gonna give some of the ideas that I have for what I'm thinking of doing for my clients. I don't know how much I want to share because I do want to state this law just went into effect, and the reason we're covering it, this law just went into effect August 17th here in New York, and we are today in August 20th. So we're really ahead of this in the sense of we're highlighting this very early on, and this is going to be nice to be able to see too a year, 2 years from now, because I do believe that things would just balance out. I think that there's, I think that this is going to end up being ultimately a good thing for the industry. So yeah, no commissions on the MLS to be negotiated by buyer's agent. Directly to seller is the way that my company is doing it. So we will place it in with the offer, adding in the commissions, and have a form directly to be signed by the seller, whether the agent wants to have the conversation with us or have their seller have us have the conversation with their seller will be up to their discretion. But that's going to be super important. I think that's going to be another one of those things. Like, are you willing to talk to sellers? Are you only a buyer's agent? Is that why you haven't gotten listings? Because right, listing agent is a talent. Buyer's agent, I think, is a talent. I really have honed in on the buyer side, but I do get listings as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's just preference. Definitely, it's always been acknowledged more, and I think now I probably will dig deeper into the listing side because, unfortunately, there is an advantage for the seller in this situation and the listing in this situation because they will have the product, which is the home. The buyer will be the person completely at a disadvantage, and I think that's probably good for us to go into now. I think that this does add a challenge for the buyer side. I think that's who's going to be mainly affected, especially in these first couple of months until things balance out, because this is all so new for everyone that I think agents are really going to struggle with even how to word this and really explain it to their clients. And clients are going to have a hard time wrapping their head around this new way of doing real estate. Because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a new way of doing real estate. And everyone goes to their mom and their dad and their uncle and their aunt and their sister and their mammy and their pappy because they're the real estate people that they know in their life.
Right.
And they're going to say, I've never heard of it being done that way.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? They're trying to scam you. Fire that buyer's agent. He's trying to get 2% from you direct. Get him out of here. They should do that for free.
No, yeah, and I love that you're doing this because it is shining a light even on me as an investor. These are things that I myself, I'm learning with you. Like right now, as you're telling me, I'm learning here and now.
Yep.
And so I'm super appreciative of that. And I do have some questions.
Yep.
Something that I was thinking is how does the new requirements for a signed agreement with an agent before touring homes affect my buying process?
How does a signed agreement before touring homes affect your buying process?
Right.
So that doesn't really affect it too differently because, again, I always had people sign a buyer's agreement. So, like, it won't really affect it in that sense at all. It will just be, are you in agreement, right? As long as you're in agreement to whatever the negotiated commissions is, then it won't affect your buying process at all, right? We're still going to tour. The only way that it will affect is if you're not in agreement. Because then, for example, myself, I'm not going out with anyone who's not in agreement because, again, that's my time that I could be giving to another client who is in agreement. Right? So it's going to be more about just being on the same page. But I don't see it being that big of an issue as long as people understand what they're paying for.
Got you. And another question that I have is, what does it mean that commissions are now negotiable? Can I really negotiate down to zero?
So one thing I want to say, because commissions have always been negotiable. I think the buyer side didn't ever realize that because they never had to negotiate anything because it was already negotiated before they got into the picture.
Right.
So the seller side always knew this. I think the seller side always knew, I'm going to list my property, but, you want 8% commission, and that's unreasonable, and they could negotiate it. For the buyer side, that's going to be a new venture that I think is going to be interesting to see because buyers have a different understanding, especially first-time home buyers, I want to say specifically, because it's all so new to them that I think that it's going to be harder for them to understand, wow, I got to pay more money than purchasing the home, if that is the case, which I kind of wanted to state about the different type of steps that I'm going to take, but I do want to answer some of your questions. So I think that It's going to be a little bit harder for the buyers to comprehend. But yes, they can negotiate it. I don't know who would work for 0% though, because then they wouldn't be paying anything, right?
Right.
I'm going to try my best with the formulas and tools that I've created to still not have the buyer pay anything. Because I do think that the buyer is the only person bringing money to the table. So I think that the buyer is paying already for everything. So the tools and tricks that I'm bringing to the table are going to have it fixed, cooked into the price the way it always has been.
That's phenomenal. And without commission offers on MLS, how will I know if my agent is being compensated fairly?
You won't. It's going to really be up to your agent to be able to negotiate for himself. It's going to be my job as an agent to make sure that I'm compensated fairly. The only way, you're going to know if you're working with a person like me because you're going to be still guaranteeing that no matter what, I would get that 2% commission, right?
Gotcha.
But like I said, we would have processes in place that would try to make it still be covered by the seller side, because ultimately the person walking away with money is the seller.
Gotcha. And now, since you mentioned the sellers, now will I save money as a seller under this new system by not having to offer a commission to the buyer's agent?
Possibly. I think that that's the part that's still going to be seen and that's the part that we're going to find out how that kind of works out. Does the seller actually save money here? Or does it kind of balance out to be the same? I have my own opinions of what's probably going to happen, but I think that this is what I genuinely and honestly think. The people that were able to save money before, the people that were able to negotiate really well for themselves as a seller, will still be able to negotiate really well for themselves as a seller. The people that were able to negotiate really good for themselves as a buyer will still negotiate really well for themselves as a buyer. But ultimately, I think that the seller is going to realize really quickly that one of two things are going to happen. They may save 3% on the buyer side, but they may lose that 3% on the purchase price of their home. So are you really saving? Are you really making more money? That I think is going to be what it ultimately comes down to, because in the market, the way the market is right now, when you get 10 offers, if these are the two best offers and the agent commissions was in them, that's still the best price the buyer was going to give, right?
Right.
So it's still the same price the buyer was going to give. If that buyer comes with no representation, your listing agent is probably still going to ask for an extra commissions to represent the buyer side, because somebody still has to make sure that all the documents that the buyer needs and the process that the buyer needs gets addressed. So you may be able to save 1% extra than paying a buyer's agent if they come without an agent. Right. But if the best offer that comes to you by far comes with a buyer's agent, are you not going to accept it? And that's kind of where it comes to, I don't know how this is really going to play out. I don't think that the seller is going to be saving the massive amount of money that they think they are going to be saving by trying to not have a buyer's agent in the commission. I think it's going to give them so many more headaches to try to deal with people without a buyer's agent, that this will kind of all level out to being the same playing field.
Got it.
I think one of the last things that I kind of want to just cover is about that, what we were talking about lastly, which it kind of almost is the with the buyer side, right? I think that we're going to see things kind of even out and balance out, is what I genuinely believe. We'll see kind of how things play out. Everything is so new, but I did just want to bring this all up to people so that they're aware of the changes that are coming, so they're not surprised. And also so that they, I would love to hear your comments, guys. I would love to hear all comments from people that want to come without buyer's agents, people that don't even want to use listing agents, people that do, questions you may have. I just want to know how I can be of service, because again, I think the add value and the service is going to be what's really going to differentiate who survives the storm and who does not. But ultimately, even for the buyers, I mean, something that you mentioned about in the higher markets and the commissions may affect less. I don't know that the commissions will affect less. I just think that at the end of the day, I want to give a good service. Obviously, I need to make a commissions because that's how I feed my family. So I need to make a living, right? Like everybody does when they go to work. But I think that adding the value and showing the consistency and resilience, professionalism, and understanding in real estate is ultimately what's going to do that. And that's what I'm going to just suggest for people that are looking at this and like, well, how do I choose an agent? Well, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for who can really add the value for you. Who do you feel you can confide in that really genuinely wants the best for you, that is giving you the most genuine information, and is not just so concerned with, obviously, like I said, I have to make a living, but not just concerned with like, oh, am I getting the top fee or whatever the case may be. I think it's a conversation to be had. I think if it's with two reasonable people, there will always be an understanding. And if it's an unreasonable person, that's always been happening already as well, right? There's been people that I've told, well, I don't think we're a good fit. People with money, actually, all the time. I'm like, I don't think we're a good fit because I think your expectation for reality is not something that I'm willing to really get with. So, like, I think this is just going to be a good time to really see whose negotiation skills are at the level they need to be and who will be able to sharpen that sword better. And now I don't mean against the client. I mean just in general, in the sense of like, who can negotiate the best deal for you? Because you won't have a problem to pay me $10,000, $15,000 if you know that I negotiated the best possible deal and maybe saved you that same money. Why would you care?
Right.
You're going to be like, oh, nah, yeah.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like, all right, I know I got the deduction. I know I'm well protected, first and foremost, right? Like, I know that title's been checked. I know that he didn't just get like a flam inspector that's going to like,
right,
turn a blind eye to this or to that. I think those are the things that are going to make the difference. And it's an interesting time in the real estate industry. And I will definitely keep you guys up to date with this market. This wasn't so much a pod. This was more like informative.
Right.
But it was still, Junior, I always appreciate you.
Of course.
And I think that I think it's an added value. I think it's still going to be good for people.
It's much needed. And I'm just, again, I'm grateful to be here and hearing this information for myself.
Yeah, because, you're about to invest into something pretty soon, too. So we got to buy something pretty soon.
Let's do it, yeah.
Yeah, guys. So with that being said, this was the Everything is Everything podcast, brought to you by the Everything Homes team here in New York. If you guys have any information, need any information in regards to real estate and need to reach out to us, please feel free to do so. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, and share. And we will catch you guys on the next one.
This is extraordinary. Can't ignore it. This my story. I've been more than ready.